everybody, it's Timah, and welcome back to my channel, Cooking for Health with Timah. And today I'm going to be fixing a full course meal. I'm going to be preparing some wild rice, some kale greens, and also I'll be preparing some fried oyster mushrooms. I love cooking with oyster mushrooms, if you guys haven't been able to tell just yet. Alright, so the first thing that I'm going to be preparing, it's going to be my wild rice. It's going to be a simple rice. So first we're going to start off with a medium-sized onion. You're going to fully chop that up. You're going to have your green onions, have like about 4 stalks, chop that up. And then one medium-sized bell pepper. You just need like half of that or just a quarter of it. Dice that up as well too. You're going to stir fry all of that inside of your grapeseed oil. And then once you get that all stir fried, you're going to put in a nice heavy cream. I use coconut cream. All you're going to need is maybe about a quarter to a half a cup of coconut cream. And you're going to put in some salt and cayenne pepper, about a half of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and pretty much season it to your taste. All you're going to need is the cayenne pepper and the salt, okay? And we're going to get that popping. Then I'll be right back. So what it really should have said was it's some wild rice that's going to be prepared with Fonio. And I had this sitting overnight in some water to soften up the wild rice so the wild rice won't have to cook as long. And then, you know, makes it a little bit more tender. So there you go. It's about a half cup of wild rice and a quarter cup of Fonio. So I have my onions on the oven right now. I'm sauteing those up. And then I'm going to toss this in with some of my vegetable broth. And I'm only going to need to use about a cup and a half of vegetable broth. If once you're finished cooking your wild rice, if it tastes a little bit too tough, then just put in maybe about a cup more, not a cup, about a quarter cup more of your broth inside of your rice to cook it down a little bit more, and just turn your heat down some more so you can do more of a slow cook, okay? And while I'm cooking my wild rice and Fonio, I also have my kale, which is already seasoned, and I let this sit overnight. And I let it sit overnight in some grapeseed oil with some onions, a little salt, a little bit of ginger, and a little bit of cayenne pepper, because I don't really want an overwhelming taste because of everything that I'm going to have together. And then and I'm not going to put that in. I'm not going to put that on the oven until the rice, because the rice is going to take the longest to actually cook. So when the rice is almost done, then I'll put my kale on the oven. And I already have my my oyster mushrooms. They've been sitting overnight in the season. But what you're going to need a wet portion, and then you're going to need a dry portion. So, and when you do this, it'll kind of taste like, if you've ever had it, because I remember I had this, Popeye's chicken. Alright, so your wet portion is going to be made, it's not egg, no, because it's all vegan and Dr. Sabi approved. So you're going to use garbanzo flour and water, and then you're going to put a little salt. Your salt needs to be completely ground up. So if you have like the salt that I have, you're going to need to really grind it up. So I use a pesto to grind up my salt. So you're going to need like I use a quarter cup of garbanzo flour to a third of a cup of of water, and then I'll put in about a teaspoon of ground up salt, about 1/8 of a teaspoon of some cayenne pepper, and that's really all you're gonna need inside of your wet mix. Alright, you guys, the seasons that you're gonna need for your oyster mushrooms, it's gonna be, you're gonna need some basil, oregano, cayenne, salt, onion powder, ginger powder, and then of course you're gonna need your spelt flour. Okay, and I let my oyster mushrooms sit inside of the flour overnight because I wanted the seasons to go through like completely. So this is what it looks like this morning. So when I put this inside of the grease and cook this down, this is going to be absolutely awesome. Okay? And so my rice is still on cooking. Like I say, that's going to take the longest to actually cook. And when it's close to being done, then I'm going to put on my kale greens. And then at the same time is when I'm going to put in my oyster mushrooms to get that all cooked up. Then I'll come back and you'll see where I am. So my wild rice and my fonio is just about done. So I'm about to go ahead and I'll put the kale on the oven now. And again, the only thing that's going to be inside of my kale is going to be some onions. I'm using shallots, onion, and then I just have, I love cooking with ginger, and then there's some onion powder and some salt, and then of course you have your grapeseed oil. And I put a little bit of my broth, and the broth that I always use is going to be my seaweed broth. So I just used 1/4 cup of my seaweed broth, and I actually had this sitting overnight. So it's going to be really nice and tender. So I'm about to go ahead and I'll put this on the oven, as like I said, my rice and my fonio is just about done. And then I'll go ahead and I'll put my oysters inside of the grease, as my grease is already getting hot. And there's my kale cooking, looking so nice and green. Yes, I have string beans in there. No, that is not on Dr. Sebi's list. But some of us still have that that taste for string beans. So, but basically, this is going to be some kale. Alrighty, so we're going to let that cook down. While the oil is getting hot, I'm just going to prepare a bowl so that I can put my oyster mushrooms in after it comes out of the oil. So the paper towel, it'll dry up and it'll catch all of the oil. And just keep it from being soggy, right? Because we want it to stay really crispy. So just line your bowl with some paper towel. Then I'll set that to the side. Now I'm gonna get out my oyster mushrooms that I set back inside of the refrigerator, and we'll get ready to put it on the oven. Alrighty, so I have my oyster mushrooms. About to put that in the oil. Now your rice and fonio, it's gonna have a creamy texture to it. One, your coconut cream or your coconut yogurt or your coconut curd that you put inside of it is gonna help, along with the fonio that you put inside of it, because you're cooking the fonio for the length of time that wild rice is gonna be cooking. So this is gonna give it a nice creamy texture. You're gonna really enjoy this. And so now, like I said, we're gonna shake off the extra flour, and we're gonna place our oyster mushrooms inside of the oil. So here are my oyster mushrooms, and I do a shallow stir fry, and I don't stir fry a whole lot. Just not even really once a month. I mean, not stir fry, but fry up anything. I don't really do a lot of frying, but I often get requests for having fried food, so I'll make that. So we're gonna let that brown a little bit more, and then I'll just turn it over, and you see I'm using chopsticks for this. Alright, so I'm removing all of my oyster mushrooms out of the oil and placing it into my already lined bowl. And I'm removing this very carefully because I do not want any of them to fall back down and splash any oil on you, right? Alright, so we're just gonna take these out carefully with our chopsticks, place them in the bowl. Oh, and this is smelling so good. This is really awesome, you guys. I can't wait until you try this yourself. Then I'm going to let my oil cool down. Then I'm going to strain it to remove all of the excess crumbs that's down inside of it. Then I'll put it inside of a glass container and store it for another use. So all of our food is done. So I'm just going to, I've turned off all the eyes. And here's our chicken. Well, it's not chicken, but it just looks like chicken. Our oyster mushrooms, our fried oyster mushrooms. And I'm going to place everything on a bowl, on a plate, and then I'll show you the end results, okay? So I'm plating everything right now. Oh, that smells so good, and I've already tasted it. This is awesome. Oh, that is beautiful and creamy. Beautiful and creamy. And just make sure that you fluff your rice after it's done. Okay? Now I'm going to go and get the greens, and I'll put the oyster mushrooms on the plate, and we'll be good to go. Here's our greens going on the plate. Guys, y'all should be here. Y'all should be here. This is a dinner fixed for any time, of course. Alright, so there's our kale. Now I'm going to put those oyster mushrooms on the plate. We're going to be all plated up. Our oyster mushrooms, they're cool enough to be touched by hand. Just going to put a few of those on the plate. We're all done, guys. This is awesome. This is absolutely awesome. 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 Alright. Thank you guys for watching. Can't wait until you make some of your own. And let me know what you thought about it.